to DameSmiff.
Yeah, give me the loot, give me the truth, give me the bass, give me the drop, give me the truth, give me the you, give me the hate. I'm making it hot when in the booth. I spit the truth, I open doors, you got it unlocked. She like to shoot, get to the loot, you play the games, I make it pop. I got the moves, you peep the tunes, we're not the same. You probably flop, point the shooters, looky lookers, haters hate, poppers pop. Run into the game, why stop? It'd be a shame that I'm not on top. She said, Dame, you're my favorite, cause when you play this, the haters, they see me working, but I'm making play and then they ate it. I really hate it, I really hate it, I hate it. They tried to play us, I know they hate us, but they faking. I spit it straight in, I'm never chasing. She love it, she measure taped it, but never taped it. She bugging, she peep the greatness, she know who Dame is. She love it, I have to say this, mommy, hold up, let me tell you something. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, 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 baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Yeah, she shook the tambourine for this. Pose, magazine with this. If I spit some real, mix it in the beans a bit. What she think I'm about to scheme a bit? Yo, peep the scene a bit, baby lean a bit. That thing got a mean sit. I got the flow to make a genie wish. These jeans are split, so what? I got you rockin' to a beat that kicks. I got the big dog flow, you spittin' drool for me. That's why she grip mine, make the gym a pool for me. 25 years, no jewelry. Diamonds over veggies wasn't cool to me. She's such a problem, make a fool of me. Never allow it, got the juice for free. She pulled me close, said you know who I be. Some people in this world say we be I.E. but love. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, 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 baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. Let's not play favorites, baby. She said, Damien, my favorite.
What's going on, y'all? It's your boy DameSmiff, and we're here with another episode of Musician Talks. And so today's episode is going to be talking about Ariana Grande and a lot about her music and what's really going on with this new civil lawsuit with her. So if you're interested in that conversation, make sure you hit the like button, because that will tell people this is a dope conversation. Also hit subscribe so that way you can catch my latest videos. So in a nutshell, what we're going to be talking about is the musical side of Ariana's career. And what I've noticed is that a lot of the blogs, if you were to just type her name in like YouTube or Google, this particular aspect of what we're going to talk about in her music is not really being covered by most blogs. A lot of blogs are talking about the movie she's in and stuff like that, but really they're just talking about her looks. Now that can be a whole separate video where it's really probably a way to where that's usually the more sensational topic for a female musician or women in music, however you want to word that. And so what I've noticed is that if we were to pull all of that aside and we really talk about what's going on with Ariana Grande, there's actually something that is going to set a huge precedent for a lot of musicians in the future that's actually happening with this lawsuit that for some reason a lot of music blogs are not covering, or music blogs, music influencers, and things like that. So we're going to look a little bit into the situation that she has because it's fairly new and still ongoing. But then we're going to deep dive into about how other artists and record labels and things like that have to navigate similar issues. Okay. So the main thing we want to look at is the basics of what we're looking at here as far as the Ariana case. So Ariana Grande filed a civil lawsuit, I can't speak, in the Los Angeles County Superior Court, targeting unnamed individuals responsible for stealing and leaking unreleased music, photos, and video footage. Okay, right there, just in that like blanket statement right there, that sounds crazy, right? It sounds like somebody basically hacked their phone and just leaked a bunch of information, right? Combined with who it is, Ariana Grande, and the brand Ariana Grande, that sounds crazy. This, in my opinion, wouldn't have been like a top story depending on the decade this had happened. But just to think about that being a civil lawsuit in Los Angeles right now, and the fact that it's not a huge story for Los Angeles paparazzi and news and things like that, goes to show you the value of her music to the general public, or at least the connection with her music to the general public, because this is going to actually make a huge, or at least have a huge effect on the Ariana Grande fan base. Okay. So the John Doe filing, and this is how they actually have filed the case, right? There's no names of the hackers that have come out. And I'm assuming the plan here is to essentially prosecute everybody here. But there is a strategy to why there's no names here. And because the true identities of the hackers and online traffickers are initially unknown, the lawsuit names John Doe 1 and John Doe's 2 through 100 are named the defendants. This allows her legal team to utilize the civil discovery process, which is issuing subpoenas to internet service providers and also things like payment platforms. So payment platforms are things like PayPal, Cash App, and stuff like that. Now that's important because a lot of people who do these hackings, or not even hackings, but really leaks, where you want to do like under the table sale of files, photos, and information and things like that, typically it's done through like Bitcoin, Telegram, WhatsApp, Cash App, and things like that. PayPal, places where you can use like kind of reusable email tokens to be able to cover up your tracks or make it like muddy up your tracks, really. And they're doing it through social media networks as well, and they're trying to basically track down the people through those networks to be able to actually get them in court. The lawsuit formally accuses the defendants of invasion of privacy, violating California's Comprehensive Data Access and Fraud Act, which is Penal Code Section 502, and conversion, the civil term for unlawfully interfering with someone's property rights. So that's what they're being sued for. So now the MO for everything is that the suit outlines a multi-year pattern where hackers bypassed direct security on Grande's personal profiles and instead targeted the digital devices and cloud accounts of her inner circle of producers and photographers. So it's not like they're hacking her phones and her computers. They're hacking people who she would probably send maybe treatments for music videos to, possibly, you know, photo shoot edits and things like that. Audio clips, audio files, probably music stems. There's probably vocals from Ariana Grande that are sneaking out there. Now, this is huge if you were to think about the music industry right now. Now, the reason I think most blogs aren't covering this is because most blogs don't really understand the magnitude of a problem like this, right? Especially for a brand like Ariana Grande's. So this is going to set a huge precedent for other musicians, and I'll tell you why, in my opinion. The reason why is because if, for example, you have something like the Suno AI engine or Udio, or these record labels that are now creating their own AI engines, right? The AI engines are built around information that we input into them, which allows the user, which would be you guys, the fans, to kind of create your own versions of our songs, or versions of songs that maybe you want to make and things like that, with the influence of what we put into the engines. So what that means in a nutshell is, let's say you make a song and you want to have some Ariana Grande-esque vocals. Well, we're coming to a point to where you can do that legally through AI engines without having to hire Ariana Grande, right? So what record labels are figuring out is that they can now license out their artists' likenesses into these engines, which will then allow you access to, let's say, stems that they provide, vocals that they provide, and things like that. And so then you can legally create using AI engines with their, I guess you can say, resources. Now, the issue is who owns what, how much of what is being claimed goes to who, and what is a song at this point, and what is a musician at this point, right? The definitions are starting to have to be tightly defined, right? What is an artist and all these things. So now when you get into a situation where you have a brand that is planning to be put into one of these engines, or planning to have their likenesses set up for future campaigns and projects and things like that, and it gets leaked, that then one diminishes the value of whatever the product was that was coming out because it's already been leaked. But two, it also begs the question of control. Who controls the product at this point? Because if we try to basically do what Ariana Grande's camp is doing here, create some kind of accountability for the people who have leaked the photos, the stems of music or whatever like that. How do we gain control over everything that's out there? And typically we don't see that happening, right? So it's kind of like a one and done situation. But here's where it affects the fans the biggest. Now, in terms of quality of product, when it comes to if you wanted to use AI music for Ariana Grande, that has now shifted because we have to figure out a way to now navigate this huge hacking problem. But then on the other hand, the general expectation of an artist having an immense amount of content ready for you as an artist is now starting to become thin, stretched. It's starting to become rare, because if you have a hard drive full of content and it get leaked once, all of the value is gone. So it's starting to change how artists are going to have to create, which means they're going to have to create almost impromptu. Like they're going to have the idea, be able to get in front of the mic live, create, and then pump the idea out. Because the idea of, or the concept of sitting on a project, building it and collaborating with multiple people is now becoming risky and vulnerable for trying to build a brand, right? And it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just that you can work with a photographer whose hard drive gets hacked and now your project is leaked. You can work with a producer who maybe sends the wrong email and now suddenly your project is leaked. I don't know how generally hacks or songs get leaked outside of hacking that wouldn't involve someone intentionally or unintentionally pushing a button somewhere, right? So it's not like the music just wandered into SoundCloud, right? So there's a whole vulnerability breaching strategy that musicians have to think about after a certain point that is going to affect the fans, because now you're getting, I would say, exclusive access, but it's going to be tighter access to authentic content from higher level brands. Now, if you want to get to like the McDonald's of music, then you can just go on TikTok live right now. Someone is probably freestyling to the comments in TikTok live right now. So if you just want some just random music, that's fine. But when you start thinking about the brands of Ariana Grande, it comes with a lot more risk assessment, and it comes with a lot more security systems and strategies and things like that, just for the sake of integrity, right? And so the complaint details security intrusions dating back to 2011, noting specific incidents such as a 2019 photographer Dropbox breach, which is a cloud site. Basically, you can upload files to this website, which would be the photos or the videos and things like that. And so somebody probably hacked their two-factor authentication, which is their password or their email, or maybe got into their phone or something like that. You could have lost your phone, anything. And somebody got into that and probably started selling the photos. And because it's Ariana Grande, they probably made a dumb amount of money, or maybe an undercut amount of money, because Ariana Grande could actually get a lot of money for a photo shoot, right? And so a 2020 producer mobile device hack happened. So again, that can be like just a passerby, I guess you could say a Wi-Fi hack. You can public Wi-Fi or things like that. It can be, somebody actually getting into the phone. It could be whatever. phishing scams targeting a digital technician in early 2024. So just 2 years ago. And that happened to siphon private outtakes and unreleased master recordings. So master recordings, for those of you who are new to this, are actually the recordings that are going to be on the album. Those are the recordings that are going to be the ones that sit in the super vault that we consider the recording whenever you're, placing a copyright or looking for ownership or credit. And so because they're unreleased, they're supposed to be, building up value, or at least building up in volume as far as getting ready to just slow release or slow drip a lot of records out. But because they were just released, all of that potential profit and all that potential earnings that they could have gotten have now just been diminished. So for the fans, how does that affect you? Well, this affects you in the long term. So this has been happening for over 10, maybe going on 15 years now. So I want you to think about how long somebody has to basically ward off thieves, right? While you guys are just waiting for the release to happen, right? For most fans, you kind of just go on with your life, and then suddenly an Ariana Grande song comes out. But what does that mean when the song that comes out wasn't released by Ariana Grande? It was actually stolen or hacked or leaked. So what you'll then have to deal with is you'll grow attached to something that does not support your favorite artist in this example, which would then mean that for 15 years, she's probably had to put up income, profits, people's salaries, all this other money that could go to her business and her, ventures and things like that towards defending herself, while you're just waiting for music, right? That's the first problem. The second problem is, after it's all said and done, the threat doesn't go away. So the next time she has to make music, like I said earlier, it's going to come with so much red tape, because the ability to, let's say, work with an Ariana Grande is now going to come with extreme stipulations, because you don't want to be the next photographer's hard drive to get hacked. But then also, the ability to see marketing campaigns are going to look a certain way, because now if there was a whole bunch of videos and photos and plans for like Snapchat and maybe reels and shorts and ideas and stuff like that that they had edited and ready to go, it just becomes a risk to have it sitting in a hard drive or waiting or moving between files and stuff like that. So there's going to be a level of urgency in terms of creation, not necessarily putting it out, just creation, because you can't just make a song and sit on it and work with other artists and try to collaborate anymore. It becomes a risk. So for fans, that means that the Ariana Grande you may get is probably going to be either the rawest form of Ariana Grande, like she's going to be able to go in the studio and just put in some really good work and then come out with a song or an album, or you're going to get the most phoned in Ariana Grande, because it's too risky to take risks at this point, right? And like I said, it's going to set a precedent for a lot of artists, because you can go on TikTok right now and just see somebody just rapping for free right there on live, but they're not building any leverage as far as in a catalog or a real estate in terms of the industry. You're going to have to start recording. You're going to have to start making albums, making sheet music, these things that Ariana Grande does. Like, I've seen the sheet music that she writes for like kids to learn, all the way up to like full on bands and things like that. All of these things matter, and you have to be in control of that of which is the reason why a lot of these hackers are interrupting this. Because if you can just get your hands on something that's either unreleased, super exclusive, it's like scalping Pokemon cards at that point, scalping Beyonce tickets at that point. Like, you're the one that's in control of how much the person who wants this thing will pay for it, right? Instead of the person that created it. And so that's the disrespectful part of hacking and leaking and stuff like that. So her dealing with this for so long is crazy, but it also is going to set the precedent for, like I said, how most people are going to have to create music on her level. So the filing notes a massive escalation in activity, though, stating that 45 songs were hacked, stolen, and leaked in just 1 year, 2023. Stolen assets, including session footage, music videos, and demos, were allegedly bundled and sold for significant sums on the dark web before being disseminated across platforms like X, formerly known as Twitter, Discord, and TikTok. So you can see how this is a huge problem for somebody who, I just want you to think, because the musicians probably heard this and they're like, that sucks. But the common person doesn't understand what 45 unreleased songs being hacked means for the brand Ariana Grande. Okay, so just to give y'all an example, I'm gonna actually do this in real time. Let's see here. We're gonna go to chartmasters.org. I want to see if I can pull this up, and I wonder if this is even accurate. Okay, cool. All right, so I want to get to just like the raw numbers. They're giving me like her story here for a second. Aha, here we go. The raw numbers. Let me see if I can pull this up for you guys. But essentially, the biggest thing you guys are going to have to worry about when you're fans thinking about this is like, well, if my favorite artist gets 45, that's the point here, 45 songs basically hacked, kind of just stolen, really. What is the thing that we're really looking for when we're thinking about supporting an artist, right? Saying that we are investing in an artist. Okay, here we go. So what we're looking at here are album sales. And like I said, this is from Chartmaster, so take it with a grain of salt for the source, right? And so the biggest thing that we need to pay attention to is not just the numbers here, but we got to also juxtapose how much money that goes in just the music, because there's a whole other side of this, like with merch and stuff like that, that can go into this, right? So I'm actually make this really big. Okay, here we go. And then I'm gonna put myself in front of that. Okay, cool. So here we are. So we have 2013. We're gonna go down. I didn't even know she did this much music. And then 2 years ago we had Eternal Sunshine, right? So the first album, Yours Truly, she did 660,000 copies of album sales, right? That's in the US. I'm only counting US right now because it is what it is. The next one, nearly a million, 825,000. I actually remember that album. 2 years later, 515,000. 2 more years later, 400,000. The next year, 450,000. The next year, 365,000. And then the last album in 2024, 120,000 sales. So some people will look at this and they'll think like there is a clear like downward trajectory of album sales, but they won't really understand the correlation, right? So if I were to look at things like, let's say, just the dark web sale of her data and, you know, music and things like that, being that her first album started out with 660,000, that's like an amazing record label marketing campaign, especially with Asia coming in with another 300,000, or really 500, almost 600,000, right? With Japan. And then the next album, 825,000. So to be dealing with hacks since 2011, and in 2014 is where you have the most sales in the US, it would make sense that things start to go down, considering that the hacking got more and more prevalent, right? In combination with other things that may have been going on. I don't know what specifically has been going on with her career for these record sales to be affected. But because we're specifically talking about hacking today, it makes complete sense that if somebody's getting leaked, that the value of the sales that are coming out are starting to go down, or the volume of the sales are starting to go down, because the content is not valued as much, is my point. meaning that people feel that they can get leaks elsewhere. People are probably trying to leak. Like there's probably an actual market for leaking this, right? After a certain point. But this is what it means for like fans. Whereas I've heard of this second album, My Everything. I've heard of Yours Truly. Once we get into like Dangerous Woman and things like that, this is where, when I was talking about the BTS Grammy situation, this is where investors are going to start to take a look at your career. Now you're no longer we can guarantee over 500 million artists, because now when your albums drop, they're not getting over 500, not million, but 500,000 album sales, right? So the kind of investor that's going to be looking at your brand is going to be different, in combination with all the other things that come with your brand and stuff like that. So possibly, and this is what I'll say, possibly, and I don't know if this to be true, this could be why you're seeing Ariana Grande try more of her talents in different areas like film and, retail and things like that, because the value of the music is starting to change based on what's occurring in her situation, right? So that's just a quick snapshot of what it could really mean for a lot of artists when we think about, oh man, what about the leakers and stuff like that? Because there's this romanticization that if you get a song leaked, that you're supposed to like, all right, now hit while the iron's hot and then be able to really make a difference. But there's not really going to be a guarantee of that. Especially if you think about somebody like Ariana Grande, you would assume that they're already like up there, right? So for most people, they're not thinking like, man, this is, you get leaked. There's nothing that can come bad from that, right? But like I said, the real issue is going to be branding and control, right? So there's other situations like this that we can think of. While thousands of demos leak across the internet annually, several high-profile incidents have significantly altered how rollouts occur. Dua Lipa, a week before its scheduled release, the album Future Nostalgia, Dua Lipa's second album, had leaked entirely online. Now, I would have fought somebody. I have to get in a fight with someone if my entire album gets leaked online and I have a whole plan. There has to be a bout that occurs for me to feel justified with this occurring, okay? And in response to the breach, her label opted to advance the release date by a week. Despite the initial distress caused to the artist, the album went on to become a massive critical and commercial success. Now, the pushing it up a week thing is probably the most reasonable thing you can do, because there's no point in waiting and then just missing all these sales and stuff like that. But like I said, that leak, it comes out of nowhere. You're not really planning on it. So the point of it being a problem is that all of the benefit that you plan on like striking the first week of sales with, you're not in control of. That's the key thing. Artists are supposed to have control over their art, right? So there's also mass vault leaks like Juice WRLD and Playboy Cardi and stuff like that. There's like people with large unreleased vaults. Persistent hackers often compile hundreds of tracks that are traded on private forums or sold on the dark web. For some artists, leaked tracks become so popular among fans that labels are forced to officially rework and release them, though unauthorized leaks ultimately rob the artist of proper rollout strategies and intended artistic presentation, right? So this is what I mean by like it's going to affect the fans. You guys are going to get into a point to where the fans can't get their full vision out, and if you are a supporter of the artist like you say you are, then supporting hacks and leaks and things like that is going to create only a precedent that is really just going to hinder the things that you say you appreciate about most musicians and stuff like that. So we're going to get into our reaction videos today, and like I said, these are going to be more so centered around Ariana Grande's music, but we're really just going to kind of shape what it really looks like for artists like Ariana Grande to navigate the world. Everybody wants to talk about her looks and how she's doing in movies and stuff like that, but this is probably one of the bigger stories that I think people need to actually be looking at. So let's get into it.
Ariana Grande has filed a lawsuit against hackers who she says stole her unreleased music. The pop star's legal team filed a lawsuit in California state court. It alleges hackers targeted her photographers and producers, infiltrating their devices and stealing unreleased content. Grande is asking the court to uncover the identities of the alleged hackers and hold them accountable.
So for most people, like when we think about this stuff, it's really going to come down to how we expect artists to move. Because if there is, well, we might as well just assume that there is a community of people in the dark web that is just auctioning off unreleased, I guess you can say, higher status music. I don't assume there's no like high demand for, I don't know, little TikTok Timmy and his new freestyle that he's working on, right? But in general, if you build up enough notoriety and you have a big enough asset, there are a group of people out there, probably men and women of all races and creeds, that are willing to spend their money that they go to work for to steal from you, right? And there probably are third party ways where it doesn't feel like stealing. Like maybe you go on like a Discord and it's called Music Leaks little Discord server, and then because you guys speak in code, it doesn't really feel like stealing yet, right? But the issue is that the artist is not in control of that. Like, you're not going to arianagrande.com and downloading her song. So that's the issue here. Now, for most people who would participate in that kind of activity, the reason they don't see anything wrong with it is because there is almost a personal type of entitlement to it. There's no real fandom or respect to Ariana Grande, the woman, right? So that's why I'm kind of doing this. It's kind of to show you guys that, like, you guys got to be able to look at her as like a woman who wants to sing and create, right? And so if you look at her that way, then it wouldn't really make sense to take music that she's waiting to release and then sell it to other people behind her back. You just wouldn't do that, right? The upfront thing would be to try to be a music executive and possibly license out music so you can sell it to your fans however you want to shape it. That's how karaoke stations get to emulate music. That's how these apps are able to put your songs on your reels and stories and stuff like that. There's an actual upfront way for you to do that if you want to actually support the woman that's making the music that you say you like, right? So that's the key thing we got to remember now.
Ariana Grande is taking alleged hackers to court, suing more than 100 unknown defendants for allegedly leaking unreleased music and personal information for profit. She says years of cyber attacks led to private content being stolen. The lawsuit claims a group of 100 suspects targeted both photographers and producers who've worked with her. One of the leaked tracks, Fantasize, became a fan favorite despite never officially being released. Grande had this to say about the song in a 2024 interview.
So Fantasize comes out, crazy, was stolen, comes out, thieves, pirates, crooks, illegal. I'll see you in jail, literally.
She seems funny, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've never seen many of her interviews, but to have that attitude and be stolen from is crazy, which means she's probably making a lot of money to just still be bubbly. I know if some of us had like 45 songs unreleased, leaked outside, like I said, there would have to be a fight. Has to be a fight, dog. 45 songs, I'm not playing with you. So, like I said, for many fans, this isn't really a big deal because we have this disconnect with artists. We try to be relatable. We try to be like, oh, it's just Ariana who really gives, a big F. But if you break down who Ariana Grande is, what she does and what she brings to the table as far as a music industry, that of which even I probably can't really explain because I'm just not in the rooms and making the deals and things like that, you'll start to realize how big of a deal this is if you yourself as an artist want an inkling of the things that she has. Like, if you want the notoriety, it's going to come with people trying to hack you. You don't even got to be rich. If you want the money, it's going to come with people trying to hack you. You don't even got to be popular. So this is a thing that we all have to navigate, that we shouldn't really like turn a blind eye to, because it's cybersecurity. Most of us are on this world, in the internet, in the cyber world, so it's good to be secure. And then two, we do have to encourage at least the culture of upright business in the music industry. We don't want to encourage the scalping of music, the scalping of tickets, or the reselling of unreleased stolen music and things like that. That's not cool, and we don't want to support that. So blogs and things like that should be supporting and highlighting that topic more so than how someone looks. Like, I don't understand that the importance of that unless it's something you guys as fans really enjoy seeing from the blogs. Like I said, when blogs post these things and you guys hit like and hit share and you guys want to talk about the topics and do reactions to the things that they talk about, it tells them to keep going. So I'm gonna do something different. So let's move on to the next topic, and it's actually still in line with what Ariana Grande is going through, but this is actually going to show us a bit more of how it actually affects us as musicians on a just general grand scale.
Leaked music is something that has been around for decades, and it has affected artists in a variety of different ways. Some leaks have ruined releases for artists, causing them to lose money, and others have increased hype for artist releases, putting more money in their pockets. But leaks have also put a lot more money in other people's pockets as well. Over the past few years, some leakers have been buying, selling, and trading leaked songs online, with some going for over $20,000 a piece. The Juice WRLD leak.
So just think, Juice WRLD fans spent over $590,000 on group buys for leaks so far. I don't even know what group buys is, but I'm assuming it's where a group buys leaks of music and things like that, right? So this is what we mean, right? Juice WRLD, just Juice WRLD, has a group of people somewhere in the world that was willing. And it's not like he did this on purpose. It's just the fact that he's, popular and people enjoy his music that much. But there's a group of people who were willing to go behind his back and spend a total amount of $590,000 on music that he did not release yet. Now, on one hand, you can use that argument. Like I said, these people will say he was going to release it. Why not spend the money? But you got to keep the obvious hand is that it was not released, right? This is about a lot of different things. This is a layered conversation here. Juice WRLD couldn't consent to that. Juice WRLD couldn't get leverage from that. Juice WRLD wasn't the one you guys were sending money to. So the problem we are really looking at here isn't so much should hackers hack? Is hacking bad? It's really more so the indifference we have for people we claim we like and how badly we treat them, right? Ariana Grande is basically fighting about 100 people that have been targeting her brand, and the biggest thing that blogs can talk about is the things that they don't like about her. So if you guys want to be fans about Ariana Grande, this should be a huge topic, right? So Juice WRLD having passed away makes it that much worse.
Community alone has spent over $600,000 on these songs. So join me today as we look into $1 million industry, the leaked music industry. So for this video, I reached out to a few well-known leakers in the community for an interview, but unsurprisingly, no one wanted to do it. So I had to take it upon myself to investigate this situation, and I even went undercover in a leaking server.
Why is it always Discord? There's also another thing. I don't want to make assumptions, but there has to be something said about how when streaming and things like that and SoundCloud and these, I guess you can say these music forums and things like that, file forums, because it probably happens in other industries like photography and film, but these places where people share files and stuff like that. Why are these places so easily, I guess, available for crime? Like, I get sharing files. I used to share files, but I shared files in the local sharing files era where you had to like plug your computers up type of shit. Emailing, that was probably the last, I've ever done with file sharing, but I don't understand the whole festering of stealing and theft and scamming that is allowed. Like, I know it exists. See, and that's I think the point people misconstrue about my point on this is that I know you're a thief. Why do you steal here so often, thief? That's my question, right? And I think for most people, when they're getting on Discord and stuff like that, or like their kids are on Snapchat or TikTok, you don't think your kid is one of the thieves, or you don't think your kid is going to participate in behaviors that are going to be around thieves, or even have a friend who is a thief or be a victim of a thief. But the consistency in where the thieves are congregating is the point that I really want to focus on. I wonder why they all find it as the viable option to come to Discord or WhatsApp or Telegram. So if I was a CEO of a, I guess you can say, digital service like this, like a chat service, then I would try to find a way to make it a very comfortable, safe place. I don't know if that's a priority for a lot of these apps.
But first, if you're unaware of what leaked music is, let me sum it up for you. What is a leak? It's pretty simple. A leaked song is a song that was released unofficially, whether it was by an outside or an inside source. We all might be familiar with outside sources, but what do I mean by an inside source? Well, it can mean anyone from the artist team, whether it be a producer, an engineer, or the artist themselves. A handful of artists have even leaked their own music. I remember specifically when Ski Mask the Slump God leaked his project Beware the Book of Eli because he was having issues with his label. A leak could be a full-length, high-quality version of the song, or it could just be an unfinished demo from a studio session. Oftentimes, songs are intentionally leaked, but sometimes they can be accidentally leaked as well. Like the time when Ugly God accidentally sent an email with 100 songs to a random fan who then held them for ransom. But if it wasn't obvious enough already, I do want to clarify that leaking music is technically illegal since it is considered piracy.
Okay. Leaking music is piracy, right? This was the whole Napster conversation. This is sharing ownership and all this stuff like that, right? I think this is more of a philosophical question that doesn't really need to be answered if you can read the law, right? Because I understand people saying, hey, I bought this thing, I should be able to do what I want with said thing. That is a good belief to have, but let's read the law, right? And so because it is piracy, we have to act as if it is piracy, okay? It's like it is what it is. Like we can't really be mad and then not do anything. We got to be mad and do something. So if you don't like that it's called piracy, then we got to advocate or find a way to figure out how what you're doing is legal. That's it. So now that we understand that, do you see how much of a problem it is for, let's say, an investor to look at your brand and see that you've been pirated for 10, 15 years looks, right? That's one thing. The other thing is that how do you think this looks for or from the artist's perspective to be pirated against in such a massive level, right? He picked some pretty tame examples as far as like accidental leaks, like emailing and stuff like that. It's just tame, meaning like highly preventable. What Ariana Grande is going through are attacks. And I think that's the difference where we kind of can't really draw a difference between you guys being such a super fan that you just are enjoying an opportunity like an accidental leak versus you guys attacking an artist's private security or digital security breach, or digital security estate. I guess that's what it would be called.
Most notable artists whose music is leaked include Kanye West, Juice WRLD, XXXTentacion, Playboi Carti, Lil Uzi Vert, and many more. Of course, this leaking happens outside the rap world as well, but it is most common in the rap community. But my next question was, when and how did leaks begin? Well, in 1969, two anonymous men created the first ever bootleg album of Great White Wonder by Bob Dylan. They compiled recordings of him playing in a hotel room, studio sessions, and live performances, which is what many leaks are nowadays. They worked at a record distributor in Los Angeles, and because of that, they had a lot of connections. At first, they just made a few hundred pressings, but it was enough to get it into record stores. This was the beginning of many bootlegs to come. Then when the internet came onto the scene in the 90s, things got even more complicated, with one of the first ever leaks being the album Songs of Faith and Devotion, which was being sent around in online chat rooms.
Okay, so the thing I want you guys to look at here is that this isn't like a group of 4 or 5 college kids linking a couple Wi-Fi routers together, hacking a couple artists. There is a whole community and network of people that have been here since probably the 70s that have been trying to bootleg and steal and pirate music, okay? So now that we've understood that, and we are both on the same page, you and I, listener, and me, we have to look at this for what it is. if you're going to be an artist and you're going to have music uploaded on the internet, there is a network of people that have been out here since nearly the 70s that have been looking for the greatest things to steal, if not the easiest things to steal. Okay? So now that we know that, let's just keep that in our brain as we go through this, and just remember that it ain't just some producer that wants to leak. It's a whole culture of people that view music this way.
Scene in the 90s, things got even more complicated, with one of the first ever leaks being the album Songs of Faith and Devotion, which was being sent around in online chat rooms, back when they had those, of course. These leaks began to replace bootlegs, as leaks were much more accessible. Back then, the leaked music typically spawned from press releases, which is when songs would be sent out early to the press for reviews.
College students.
So what that means is, for those of you who were barely listening, that basically means that if you were an artist, right, and you wanted to get on the XXL freshman cover, and they were like, yeah, send us some of your music here that you plan on debuting and stuff like that, and you have, like, let's say a song you want to debut, and you send it to them, and the release is probably a month away, right, and you send it to them, it is very possible that the person you just emailed that to could CC another person. So being that the case, or that being the case, is it feasible to see that most artists will no longer share their music with people? Will no longer make it easy for you guys to get sneak peeks, background clips and stuff like that? Or would you say it would go the opposite direction, where everything is now low value? You're going to see sneak peeks from 3 years ago, like you're seeing with these beats and stuff that are coming out. Like, people are putting their beats on Instagram stories, and then 4 years later, it's finally coming out. Like, what do you guys think is going to happen? Let me know in the comments.
Students are making good use of the internet. The latest software makes it a bit too easy for students to access their favorite tunes.
In the early 2000s, leaked songs obtained by fans began to be uploaded to websites like Napster, MySpace, and LimeWire. For instance,
and then the other thing too, I want you to pay attention to how she kind of shaped that narrative there. She was saying it became easier for students to find their favorite artists. Students weren't the ones designing and filtering and distributing this music at a mass level. Students were the ones consuming. So this is like the trick versus prostitute conversation. Like, which one should we really be targeting? The people who are consuming this, or the people that are distributing it? Because we can sit up here and say, oh man, y'all shouldn't be stealing, but like I said about Discord, you shouldn't be able to steal so easily as much as you want to steal.
A Metallica song was leaked onto Napster in 2000 and was so popular that it even made its way to radio stations before it was officially released. Because
it made it to radio before they released it themselves. Just understand the magnitude of all of the things that you would lose if radio is already playing a song that you have planned to get on the radio. As far as the metadata, as far as the information is, for future dates, tours and things like that that's coming up, writer credits, the plays and things like that are counted towards sales and stuff. How do you manage who controls all of that?
This, Metallica sued Napster and won, and Napster went bankrupt a couple of years later. However, leaks have continued on since that incident, and with new websites like YouTube, SoundCloud, and Discord, leaks are more prominent now than ever before. So, how does something leak? There's a large variety of ways that things can be leaked, so I'm just going to mention the most common ones. One of the most obvious ones is a hacker gaining access to an email where the file may be. Another common one is phishing, where a leaker sends an email to a producer, artist, or someone with access to the music, pretending to be someone else so that that person sends the song. Sometimes artists will use public studios and save their files to the computers there, giving access to anyone else who will be.
Why would you do that, artists? I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even know that, like, culturally, I didn't know that was a thing. Like, I know public studios exist, but I didn't think culturally you would hit Control S and then walk away from that computer thinking your song is safe. Why would you do that? So, okay. I'm not going to put too much weight on this one, but I think this one we got to say it just so we can just say it. It has been said. Put your stuff on another device that you can keep private, y'all. Like, if you're gonna save music, stems, record vocals, a public studio's internal hard drive is not where you want to put that. We'll probably do a cybersecurity episode or something like that. But the fact that that is a thing, I wouldn't even think that that was a thing in the 90s. Like, we would know to not save passwords on public library computers. Like, I don't know why you would. Okay, we're like I said,
studio. Mac Miller, for example, said to avoid this issue, he would use unassuming aliases, which is how his Larry Fisherman identity came to be. With a lot of artists nowadays sending music back and forth to producers, engineers, and other artists, it's pretty easy for one of those people to send music to a friend, and it somehow gets out that way. There's also weak links in the industry, whether it be a producer, engineer, or someone else, who will sell leaks online or just release them for free. Even Murda Beats said that he used to leak old Migos songs that he knew would
Murder on the beat, so it's not nice. That's him, if you guys never put a face to it.
drop. Like I said earlier, music can also leak accidentally, like the incident with Ugly God. I've personally seen some smaller artists that I'm fans of accidentally release music by posting songs publicly on SoundCloud when they meant to post it privately. However, some people believe that leaks are intentional as some sort of marketing strategy from labels to boost sales. One leaker said in an interview with Vice, "I think some music also comes from labels because I see people selling songs that are about to come out in a week's time. If a song is going to drop in a week, who else would have that other than someone in a label?" Like I said, hackers have gotten into many artists' emails, but they could also get into yours too. The best way to protect your emails, your search history, and all of your internet browsing is with Atlas VPN. There's a bunch of...
So yeah, I think for most people, like I said, this is going to be kind of like a how does this affect me kind of story, right? You're not really going to see it or feel it until you realize, oh shit, I kind of want to make a song and put something out and I want to see how it works. And then you'll start to have to realize, oh shit, I really do have to think about more than what kind of notes and things that I want to play. So let's get into our next topic and let's see how it really looks to work with something like this when we're dealing with it from the, I guess you can say, cybersecurity angle, and not necessarily just the you know, musical nerd hacking level, right? So let's get into it.
I'm Demetrius Malbro, your host, and today on the show I have the co-founder and CEO of Carbide, Darren Gallup, and he is a cybersecurity expert, and also he runs a cybersecurity firm that provides businesses of all sizes with the tools they need to adopt a strong cybersecurity and privacy posture. So, Darren, how are you today? And welcome to the Gumbo.
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be on the show.
All right. Why don't you?
In
Mhm.
terms of communicating with
Oh,
in our record label, we
Mhm.
struggle. It's a hard business, as I learned the hard way. It's a
went too
hard
far.
business at the best of times, and of course, you know, the certain things happen in the world. So,
Yeah.
2008, I started my first technology company. I built
Okay,
a
there we go.
company by the name of Mercado, and it was an
Okay.
event management platform that effectively it was, you know, a SaaS company for businesses when, you know, most of us weren't really using SaaS companies.
Mhm.
And we managed the back end. So the whole premise was helping manage the logistics and the chaos that happens in building and managing large cultural events like music festivals. And by 2014, we were the back end by some of the biggest music festivals in the world. We had customers like Bonnaroo, Coachella, Burning Man. We even had sports events like X Games, comedy festivals like Just for
Mhm.
Laughs festivals. And not only in the US and Canada, but we were also in Mexico and in Australia and all over Europe. We were effectively, by the time we sold that company in 2018, we were operating in 23 different countries with
Wow.
events, cultural events of all types. And that's really where this whole engagement around security happened. As we started getting more involved, our platform grew, and we started working with more commercial events that are owned by enterprises like Disney-owned properties and
Mhm.
AEG properties and Live Nation properties. They were very concerned about the large amounts of data that we were storing and processing. They were very concerned about their dependence on us as a small company up here in Canada, that,
Yeah.
you know, our availability requirements were substantial. If we went down for 20 minutes at an impromptu time, it could have massive impact. So data integrity, data availability, confidentiality, all that stuff was really critical in that business. And it really forced me to learn a ton about cybersecurity. We had to go
Okay.
through the process of having our infrastructure reviewed by a third party. Of course, we were all, music guys who were into tech, who were building software, and it was all about make it work, make it look pretty good. And we didn't have the education. So, obviously when we started going through these assessment processes, there was a lot of discovery that wasn't super positive. So really forced us to up our game. We had to go through a SOC 2 audit. We had to do an ISO 27001 audit. And then, by the end, but when I was doing, before I sold it, we had to go through all the preparational process to become compliant with GDPR. And that was, another lift. So those years from 2014 right to the end, that's 4 years where I would say about 50% of my time was actually focused on building a security program, upgrading the security of our web application and our processes and our other tools, our on-prem technology, and implementing data privacy and learning all the while of doing it.
Wow. So imagine having to do that while getting ready for your tour, right? And so this is where record labels shine like heavily, because you could have an employee or an assistant or a department dedicated to figuring this out with you, so it can like either ease that learning curve or speed that learning curve up, right? And I'm sure for him that 4 years probably felt like daunting because it was new, not necessarily hard. I'm sure he was smart enough to be able to get it and handle it and do what he's doing. The guy was already doing event tours, which blows my mind. Like, I've done tiny little like backyard shows, so to be able to do 23 countries, that's amazing. So then for him, it just took a matter of just like, let me just sit down and grind this out. But it had to be daunting in the sense of like, just like having to learn and put all of this new information into practice, right? But all in all, when we think about our favorite artists, like the examples we saw in the last video, those were like just rappers. Like those are guys who, the thing you have to protect is your one song or your one album, right? What he's talking about is he has to cover for other people's data. So now this is my point. The precedent that we're seeing set by Ariana Grande right now is, in my opinion, going to be, if you want to work with an Ariana Grande, you have to have the level of security or cybersecurity knowledge that this man has. Because it's going to be that important. It's going to be that important for you to understand the value of the information Ariana Grande is going to hand to you, even if it is just a photo.
So
wow. Okay.
That's how
pretty
weird, I think if you went back and found my long-haired,
your picture,
me in the back of a van and going on tour with some funk rock band and told me I was going to be the CEO of a cybersecurity company, I'm not even sure I would have understood what that even means. So certainly wasn't a path that was deliberate. But I think for me, what I found really fascinating when we were going about this process, and it started in 2014, is that a lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the tools out there at that time, a lot of the policy templates and other things that we had access to were really designed around more like not the old school, like the perimeter, the network,
physical
security,
stuff, right?
Yeah, and it was like there was not really a lot of stuff around cloud, around like remote work, around like working on the go. The language was very technical. Like a lot of the policy templates that we would have downloaded from some of the different sources really sounded like it was like the lawyers and the really techie people got together and wrote, the kind of stuff that I didn't really think my employees would understand or relate to. And I just felt like, I remember when we initially looked at the problem, I was like, I'll just go to like a SANS website and download some stuff and, find all org name change to Mercado and just ship that off to our employees and thumbs up. But, it was really quickly.
Now, let me ask you this. That was a great explanation of your background. And I love the whole music aspect of it, and being able to, I guess, produce music and record company. I mean, are there any parallels with music production and running a company, or producing music, or any parallels between music and cybersecurity? I'm just talking maybe from a procedure and process perspective, if you've ever
Absolutely.
thought of that before.
Absolutely. And I've thought about it in depth.
Okay.
So outside of cybersecurity, just the general running a business, it's a business, and the human factor and the leadership and the communication, all that. It doesn't matter. I think whether you're in a political environment, whether you're in a small business or an enterprise, that stuff translates very well from industry to industry. Specific to security, we think about the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. All my recording and production work that I did was all in a digital environment. So, some of the early stuff we were using tape, but people, the convenience of being able to like take another take and take a little section there and copy and paste that, and that really took on quickly. So, when I started doing engineering, the first thing I needed to do was I didn't understand the computer system into the degree of depth that I felt I need to really run a system. Availability. If somebody's taking making the best cut of their track everywhere, and the vibes go and everyone's smiling, it's like, this is the best cut ever, and they're going, and they got hired musicians in, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, oh no, an error in your system fails, right? So, right there out of the gate, through trial and error, I had to learn to make sure that system was always ready. It was always going to run. So segregating it from being online, not installing any applications that aren't specific to the recording. So really building a purpose-built machine and turning off any functionality to make sure it's stable, to make sure when we need that machine on, it's available to go. And when those musicians are there, the clock is ticking, people are flying in for a recording, and there's a lot of stakes, and there's nothing that'll derail a musician or make people more mad at you than sorry, I lost that take. And then so moving on, integrity, like you've got a bunch of different files, you got people recording tracks in different studios, you got to bring all that stuff together, you have timing and sync, and you've got to make sure your bit rates and your all these things are proper. So, and I've had this happen. I've had the bad experience of, oh no, all these tracks are out of sync. How do we reconstruct this? And of course, like all that kind of stuff, right? So integrity, availability, absolutely critical. I've seen cases where people recorded all day and didn't realize that they didn't have their timing clock set. And then there's this clicking sound, and there's all kinds of integrity in the data, so that all the track's not usable. And then confidentiality. I mean, you're basically, you could be working with an artist for 6 months or more on what's to them a very important release, and you're making rough mixes all the time for people to be able to listen to in their car and their headphones, try it in different stereos, share it with their label, doing things like that. So you had to share data, you had to put these files in a way that they're online. So I mean, we had an incident once. We had an incident where somebody breached a bunch of rough mixes months and months before a record went out. I mean, these are real problems, and that was something that caused a lot of friction between myself and the client. So definitely a lot of parallels, certainly when you're talking about the music production component.
Wow. And that's exactly my whole point with this video here. And in a nutshell, what he's explaining is that there's parallels when you're thinking about how to create a song and the process it takes to create a song today in the digital world, and the parallels to running I guess you can say a brand or a music group, and the cybersecurity aspect that you have to basically worry about nonstop. So to draw the parallels, essentially, if you wanted to record with a bunch of different artists, you have to make it to where the studio and the software in the studio is functional all the time and stable, to where you don't have the tiny little nuances that could mess anything up, like having a metronome clicking over the song, or perhaps the room not being treated for sound properly, so now you hear the lawnmower out in the front or something like that, or maybe the bit rate from one file to the next that you are merging together in this project aren't aligned, so now you have to reorganize everything, or probably re-record some things and things like that. If you want everything to work smoothly, there's a lot you have to think about outside of the music, right? And so bringing it all back to Ariana Grande, when you see people report on Ariana Grande and they don't cover this story, just understand that they're not covering this story and why they wouldn't be covering this story. This is something that is going to be make or break for all of our future musicians, because we're moving into a realm of not only digital creation with AI, but digital creation amidst AI. Like, you're going to be creating alongside people that are going to be able to easily and probably, I guess you can say quickly, more quickly than you, strategize these cybersecurity things. And not only will they be able to attack better from a hacking perspective, but you will also find it a lot harder to protect yourself because of things like the engine you used for AI, or where you sent records, or like he was saying in the last clip, maybe you're sending out files to for your friend to record or just to listen to in their car so you can see how it sounds. That new sharing of files and stuff, it becomes extremely vulnerable and risky for a brand like an Ariana Grande, which means how she's going to release music from now on, if she wants to get back to that 850,000 album sale point, is going to look a lot different. So that's all I have for you today. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, this was Musician Talks with your boy DameSmiff. We covered a lot today about cybersecurity, hacking, and the leaks from Ariana Grande. Wish the best for her, and I really hope that a lot of this is actually going to come to where we can actually identify these people and see what's going on and how they're getting this done. Because like I said, it is interesting that the thieves go to the same places. They like to hang out in groups. They're not like surprising us.